All right, we are live, episode 47 of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to finally be chatting with Mr. Joseph Arrington, all the way from Texas at the moment, living in Franklin, Tennessee, and that's kind of the musical hub of your professional life, at least at this point.
For right now.
And I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for taking the time and being here, and we're going to chat all about your journey. Before we get started, I wanted to thank my good friend Mr. Mark Eakins, my musical partner in the duo Sticks and Tones, for making this special gift for me for my birthday, which was actually in February. So it's a cool little coaster, and thank you so much for that, Mark. And welcome, Joseph. Thanks so much for being here. Or should I say Joby-Wan Kenobi?
Yeah, the many dozens of nicknames that have happily plagued me for years. Another one is Jobo Baggins was another good. That was my sister's.
Wow, people love you, man. This is awesome.
Well, nicknames can be a loving gesture, and they can also be. Anyway, yes. No, I'm pleased to be here. I appreciate you, Neil. You know, you are endorsing and playing the best drum company on earth, so it's a no-brainer.
Yes. And I encourage everyone, grab your stuff. They've got a great sale happening on at gretschgear.com. I got this and a couple of things for my granddaughter who arrived. She's 5 weeks old today. Unbelievable. Nice. You talk about burping babies, and I don't do a whole ton of that, but I get to hold her and do all the good, we call me Drumpa, which is kind of...
Drumpa.
We are Drumpa here in this household, but it's kind of weird because my wife goes with Granny. My wife's 44 years old, so it's kind of, but we are...
You won that one. You won that.
I definitely did, but that was her choice. So, man, this is awesome. The reason that I reached out to you is that when I search for guests to chat with, of course, I have so many different Gretsch artist friends who recommend people, but I like to see on the Gretsch.com site, GretschDrums.com site, go through the artist. I came across you. I wasn't familiar with your name. I scrolled down, read your bio, but what really got me was your video. Your video was amazing. Can you tell people about what's in that video?
Yeah, so that was a while ago. That was, in fact, I forgot that was on the site, but I'm down for them to keep it there because it's uplifting and it's honest. So to be quick about it, Warped Tour 2014, may Warped Tour rest in peace. There was a group called Natural High that was just trying to push an agenda, a good agenda about you don't have to use drugs to be here, to be in this realm, and to live an exciting life, etc. And I mean, I just felt like, you know, Warped Tour, it's impossible not to feel like just a dirty vagabond playing in 115-degree weather. And all of a sudden they pulled me aside and they said, hey, are you, like, do you use drugs? And I said, nope. And they said, do you want to do an interview? I said, sure. So they just sat me down at the back of a trailer. I had just played. It just felt disgusting. You know, I had showered in 3 days. Probably shouldn't say that, but that's Warped Tour for you. That's any summer festival circuit. But I was just honest. They said, you know, what's your natural high? And I was like, I've never really thought about it like that, but I guess if you have a vice or something that you're trying to kick or like a problem in your life, you got to replace it with something better, something good. So I'm like, these are the things I like. I like to read books. I'm obsessed with reading books. I'm obsessed with my instrument, practice. I go backpacking in the wilderness. And that sort of replaces the need for things that make me lose control and so I didn't think anything of it, but then they posted it and it had some positive influence. So
yeah, it was refreshing, nice to see that, because I don't do drugs. I never have. I'm not judging. I don't feel great if I even drink a little bit. I don't like the feeling, like you said, of losing control. And man, I love outdoors. I live basically in the country, in a country setting. It's amazing. I'm right near a big lake, I'm like 200 yards from Lake Simcoe. It's
Nice.
great here. So, and I love being outdoors, especially now that it's getting spring. But your video made me want to message you, and like that was the kind of guy that I wanted to talk to on the show. And I'm not judging folks do what they do.
Yeah, to
But
each their own, of course. It's just
absolutely.
personal preference. Also, if anything, that video connected us, which makes it beyond worth it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yep.
This is great. So now, and of course, I did some research on some of the bands that you have played with over the years. Some a lot like Birds, Royal Coda, Sea and Var, people like Kurt Travis, Love Mischief, Amity Affliction. Man, I was not familiar with many of those bands, but put some YouTube stuff on, have you playing along with this, and I'm like, whoa, like you're a serious student of the instrument. Have the prog, the jazz, the rock influence. What did you say it was? Pop rock with heavy tones with an improvisational spectrum. Remember you described, right?
Man,
and
there's Jobo Baggins.
And how am I right? And how am I gonna? Because I didn't know what to call a lot of the stuff that I heard you play.
Neither do I.
Kind of, but and that's the cool thing, is that it draws from so many influences, right? So let's go back a year. So what have you been doing for the last year since there's been no live work?
Well, other than sitting on my big fat butt, just kidding. I like the rest of the world, had to reimagine what my life was. And I have a wife and children, and I have a lot going on. So my story is not going to be unique in that respect, that's for sure. However, I remember posting, I'm Mr. Controversial. I posted something on Instagram a while back, and I just said, plot twist, the COVID moment actually revealed the real you. Whatever. But it's just how I felt at the time. I was like, I was reflecting on myself, and I was like, maybe one person wants to hear this. But haven't been able to perform live. And actually, the moment all the shutdowns happened, we were about to embark on probably the biggest tour of our career. We were about to play a show in Los Angeles to start a tour. It was a sold-out 4,000 cap room. So, and that on the way to that show, we were listening to the radio. We were like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? And the next day we were just waiting. I mean, like cell phone in hand, like what's, and then they said, we're pulling the plug, fly home. So wham. I got home, and I actually did go through kind of a little while where I was like, I had a little bit of an existential crisis, and that term is used too often, but I felt I wasn't sure what to do with myself. But then I pulled myself out of it pretty quick. I checked myself, and I started a new diet. I kind of revamped my I started something called the carnivore diet. I only eat animal products, nothing but protein and fat for 11 months. So with a few cheat moments, and I lost like 40 pounds. And my mental state was better. I slept better. As far as music goes, I relied on Patreon, where I have a lot of lessons. I break down a lot of the grooves from my albums. I have some amazing supporters there. But over time, I even took a break from that because I realized it was kind of stressing me out, because the constant focus on like, you need content, you need to update, you need this and that. Yeah. I'm not even that kind of brain. I'm not analytical. I'm not the most organized person sometimes. So I even took a break from that. And I recorded some records last year. I did brave the madness to go out, and I recorded one in New York, one in Sacramento. And then I did a lot of personal writing and stuff. And I did the first break from drums that I've ever taken in my life in November. Yeah, I used to really struggle with, if I don't practice every day, I'm just going to fall apart, like become a terrible drummer. I'm obsessive about practice. But I broke my back to write for these records and practice. And so I said, okay, after this one in November, this this session in November in New York. I'm going to come back. I'm going to put the drums on the shelf. There's no way that my favorite drummers that I've always cared about, there's no way they've just played every drums their entire, or played drums every day the rest of their whole life, you know? They had to take a month or two off, vacations, health stuff, I don't know. So I just took some time off, got into some other things, read some books, learned how to build a website, HTML. I just did some other things. I was also incredibly lucky that my wife has a really good job in IT, and she works from home. I mean, I literally don't know what any of us would have done without her. And so she like stood strong there, and we were able to support. Recently, I picked up drums again after the holidays, and now I have a bunch of stuff booked and lots of video games. The last year's been a lot of video games. So that's
great. It's good. You've got to step back and examine yourself, examine your life, what you're really feeling, and doing those other things as you know now, are going to feed the muse. You're going to feel refreshed, especially the health thing. That's incredible that you've done that. That's amazing. So how was it as soon as you started to play again?
Wow. Well, I still taught because I have a lot of Skype students, remote students, and shout out to all you cats that take lessons from me. I feel like all of you are better drummers than me already. But every time I sat down to teach, which was like maybe 1 or 2 days a week, which wasn't practice or music, it was just teaching. Every time I sat down, I was like, oh my God, I can feel the skills just leaking out my ears, like it's going away. But sometimes a break reinvigorates the creative aspect of your mind. Doesn't feel like it when you're taking the break. Right. You'll be in like Vegas or something, like, why am I not on a drum set? This is stupid. But you come back, and maybe you've experienced this, and I know other musicians have in conversation I've had with them, but you sit down at your instrument and you're like, well, this is going to be a terrible experience because I haven't played in 3 weeks. And then you play and you're like, whoa, great. Something else is coming out of me. And maybe the technique aspect has suffered a little, but most of us can get back on the bike pretty quick. If you know I have like a series of routines I do that just get me back in the game in like 5 days. But as far as the inspiration, I'll sit down and play to like a drumless track, and I'm like, listen back to what I recorded or something, and I'm like, dang, that was, didn't expect that. Yeah.
I almost feel like the mind kind of organizes, or it's working in the background, and then when you're playing music, it's playing music rather than regurgitating hand patterns or licks or whatnot. And it's amazing. Sometimes I've played a show where we've had no sound check. It's like, you're on now. I haven't warmed up. And it's like, man, this is actually really grooving. And yeah, my hands aren't, but I don't play the kind of music that you're playing that's got a lot of stuff in there, but you feel like this is good. Maybe you get out of your own way.
Yeah, and one of my favorite quotes is from Jojo Mayer, who terrible drummer.
He sucks. And he's not a nice guy.
No, he's just forget about the name. No. Go if you haven't heard of Jojo Mayer, then
please
you're
go
missing
check
out
him out.
on
Yes.
Anyways.
Gretsch drums. He should.
A lot of my favorite drummers that don't play Gretsch, I always think to myself, what would they sound like on the USA Custom?
Better.
But yeah, better.
I'm just kidding.
No, it would probably But Jojo Mayer once said, and it was on his first DVD, the Hand Technique DVD, which I tell everybody to watch. It's pretty much the science of drum technique is really what it is. But he says the first note of my warm up is the first note of my gig, and I was like, whoa, yeah, all right. I don't have to warm up all the time. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that what you've internalized for years, decades, is gonna perform well, whether you warm up, have a sound check, or not. It's a trust thing. Trust this. Just So.
Right. A lot of musicians don't, and they're anxious and they carry that with them, and then they're not. Yeah. So anyway, this is wonderful. So when did music and drums happen for you? Was it music first? Was it drums first? Was it both? How old were you?
Okay. Well, and my stories go on way too long, so I'm going to try to.
This is good. I'm
put
loving
this
this.
I'm going to try to make a burrito out of this. So when I was a kid, both my parents are artists. My father is a professional playwright and actor, and my mother was a musician and a music teacher. And so but I also grew up in a small town in Utah. So I didn't have any hubs near me whatsoever. I love Salt Lake City, but it's not really a hub for much other than the Mormon church. So like and my parents listened to a lot of classical music, a lot of movie soundtrack stuff. So like orchestral soundscape stuff. And, we were obsessed with movie soundtracks and Disney soundtracks, and we'd sing along to Nightmare Before Christmas. And so music was a huge part of my life. By the age 8, I was taking piano lessons, which I hated.
Of course you did.
There was an old lady telling me to put my fingers in the right place, and I was just like, ugh. But I appreciate it so much now because I learned what a quarter note was. I learned what a 16th note was. I learned what a dotted note was. I at least internalized that. And I remember, this is so funny. When I went into junior high, I was 12, and they were like, you have to pick an instrument. And I was like, instrument. I was like, my mom already plays. I don't need to play. I think I was doing video game art on like video gamer. And my mother played a grand piano and sang. She turned Mormon hymns and Quaker hymns into kind of into kind of a modernized style. And every Saturday morning I'd wake up to her just playing and singing at the same time upstairs. Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was very much, I was internalizing it for sure. It's very obvious now. So I remember I was in my elementary school, 6th grade, and they had a little troupe of junior high band kids going around and doing assemblies saying, hey, you're going to be in this school next year. These are the instrument options. And I was so bored. Just because I was just a punk kid, I was bored. I was like, oh, the woodwinds, the string section. And they were all 13, so they're like showing off their instruments. I was like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's how it felt at the time. Yeah. And then there was a drum set on stage, which I hadn't really noticed. And this little kid, he had no idea, but they're like, you could play the drum set. Here's one option. He played a little fill into like a drum beat, and I was just like, that dude is hitting that instrument with sticks. I forgot about the drum set. I could do that. That's cool. Like that's kinetic. That's like energetic. And I heard those drums and then they stopped the solo and moved on to other instruments. I was hooked. And so luckily you had to have some piano background to get into drums. So they had like a little audition thing because there were only so many slots for drummers, and I made it. So the piano worked. And I started on rudiments on a drum pad, and I did all the orchestral stuff, bass drum and suspended cymbal, John Williams Orchestra. We played like Disney medleys in front of our parents horribly. But then I got my first drum set moment where we played it was a Disney Mulan soundtrack. And there's a drum set moment in I'll Make a Man Out of You. There's just a quick moment where it's like doom ba doom doom ba, and there's my first drum set moment that I performed in front of other humans, and I have video of it.
No way!
I was so nervous. I was just like waiting for the moment. I even played a fill, da da do 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 do, and I went into it, and anyways. So fast forward, high school. The reason I'm really grateful for this trajectory. In high school, I got into jazz band. I also got into the symphonic orchestra. And I got into the drum line. So jazz band, symphonic orchestra, drum line. And then I was anti-establishment as hell because I grew up in a religious world and was just like, I hate establishment. So I joined a punk rock band with my friends. So I was kicking figures and reading charts in jazz band, really working on my hands and rudiments and stuff. And I was also playing in the orchestral stuff, still doing timpani and xylophone. And then on the weekends, I played in a punk rock band called Pork Chop. And we just played punk rock covers, like pop punk covers. We were all chubby kids, so we called ourselves Pork Chop.
Oh,
and we played sold out ska punk shows in the 90s.
That's incredible.
So I kind of had all these things to appreciate, and I didn't really know how to assimilate them all yet, but I was just any chance to sit in a drum set. And I was flunking out of school. I'll be honest. I don't mind talking about that. I was flunking out of high school. I barely made it out of high school. But drums were like, it's all that mattered. So,
wow, what a story and what a background. And of course, as you said, you didn't realize just how invaluable all of those, different aspects of music, from the piano lessons to the orchestral to the jazz stuff to playing punk, is kind of how you play. Well, you play better today.
Sometimes. Depends on the day.
But that's incredible, man. I envy so many of my guests that had that background, because I didn't have any of that stuff, because I started playing so much later in life. But that is fascinating.
It's a crazy trajectory.
It's incredible. So you squeaked through high school, as you said, or you got out, and then what happened in your life musically? What was the next step for you?
So, and to preface this, I remember when my parents bought me my first little Mapex $200 drum set with Sabian B8 cymbals. When I got my first drum set at 13, and we put it in our basement. We're very lucky we had a basement. And my parents tell me now, they're like, we were absolutely convinced that this was just this goofy little phase. It was loud. But one more little preface is I learned to read drum notation on my own. I got Rick Latham's Funk Studies on a whim at the store.
Yeah, that's
such a good
great.
book. Yeah, great. And I sort of looked at them like, well, I know 16th notes on the piano. They were very linear groove concepts. So I was like, well, groups of 4/6, hi-hat, kick, snare. So I sort of taught myself that end of it at home at a very young age. I just was obsessed with learning new patterns. So out of high school, I had a lot of really terrible things happen in my life. Both I made some terrible mistakes, and life happens. Yep. And drums kind of became my therapy. Like nothing else matters. People are crap, but drums, I can practice the drums. And I can sit down at drums, and I've always been obsessed with practice because I love watching the technique and the patterns unfold before your eyes. It's so satisfying. You just sit down, you can have a pattern you don't know, and in 30 minutes, if you're smart about it, in 30 minutes, you'll know it. It may not be something you just instantly pull out at a gig, but and something about that was so sort of therapeutic and satisfying for me. I'm like, well, I can't trust humans, I can't trust planet Earth, but I trust the drums. So that was my sort of, drums were my therapist for years. 21 years old, I played with a few bands here and there. Life was a little chaotic. My parents got a divorce. Some other things happened when I became an adult. And I was just like, don't know who I am. And at 21 years old in 2005, I got a rare opportunity I got hired by a band to play all of Warped Tour in 2005. And the pay was crap, but I just wanted to play in front of audiences and eat Taco Bell. I was just ready to do this.
Sounds good.
So I did, and that was boot camp for me in two ways. First of all, it was the most uncomfortable time in my life. We were an opening band on a crap stage, and we had to help build the stage to keep our spot on the tour. Yeah. But and we made very little money, and we had 8 dudes in a 15-passenger van, no hotels, because Warped Tour drives overnight to every venue. So that tour confirmed that A, maybe I've already gotten the worst behind me, and B, I actually want a career in music. Like I was watching drummers on giant stages playing not that great. I was like, this guy's not even. It's like this band is making millions. Anyways, and no offense to them, because everyone has their own path, but it's like, man, maybe I could do this.
Right.
And it was after that tour that I sort of fell into heavy music. I never pictured myself getting into heavy music, prog, heavy prog. I listened to a lot of prog growing up, like sort of the King's X and like the Vinnie Colaiuta prog, and more prog fusion genres or whatever. But after that, the bands that I sort of just by fate ended up being with were just heavier bands. And this also leads to one of the questions I saw in the email, which is Vinnie Colaiuta has been my guy since I was 14. And I remember, I think it was Dom Famulero who said, Vinnie plays rock like a jazz drummer and plays jazz like a rock drummer.
I just
was
read
like,
that again. Yeah, true.
And so I kind of used that as fuel to be like, whoa, what if I kept playing heavy music, but I don't have to change my vocabulary. There's no rules. As long as you make it feel good, there's no rules. And so I had a lot of really terrible personal stuff happen again after Warped Tour. Then I, on a whim, drove to Sacramento at 25 years old to sleep on couches and start playing with a band. And that's when my life really changed. And I feel like I kind of became a man at 25. So
wow. And what band was that?
So the band that asked me to come out was a band called Mozart Season. They are no longer. Those guys are really cool. It just didn't work out. But being in Sacramento, that was like where I really had to test my mettle. That's where, I got a job at a local music store called Skip's Music. And I'm making this story way too long, but
this is wonderful.
So I got a job at a retail store called Skip's Music, which is quite famous. They've been around 40 years, and it's an independent music retailer, amazing drum shop. And I was so poor that I was sleeping on a futon in a house in pretty much a drug den. I just couldn't afford to live there, and they were letting me live there for free. But I was just, that's not fair to call it a drug den, a party house. Everybody was younger than me except this one dude who ran the house. And there's endless stories there. But I was trying to pay off debts and like get on my feet. I was like, I don't want to hightail it back to Utah. I don't want to hightail it back to my parents' basement. I just don't. And I did. I paid off debts. I eventually got into a really awesome bachelor pad where I had a really great situation that was pretty affordable. And I got in good with a local studio, like a big warehouse where they had like 60 different rooms you pay rent for. And I got my own room and just put my drum set in it. And I was like, it's 24/7, high security. So I can just come in here. And so for the early stages of Sacramento, I worked at Skip's Music. I practiced the drums every moment I had free and just sort of lived this weird hermit life. And that was right when I joined A Lot Like Birds. Michael Franzino, the guitarist, saw a solo I did on YouTube. And that was back when I was quite overweight. It was a dark video. I had a beanie on. He thought I was like 50 years old. I was 25. And he still called me. He was like 19 years old. He was that guy. He's like, you know what? I don't care who you are or how old you are. He's like, you want to come record drums for this band I have called A Lot Like Birds? No. And I was like, sure. So we got together and we jammed, and I played some kind of Afro-Cuban style stuff. And he was like, that we should keep that in this music. And I was like,
awesome.
Oh, but I thought your music was heavy. He's like, don't think genre, just whatever spills out of you. So for the next 3 or 4 years, I just took on every gig that came my way. I didn't care what it was. And I had the same mentor for about 12 years growing up. And he said, never say no to a gig. Stanton Moore's first gig was a polka band that he toured with. And he claims that's how he developed his dead roll. Buzz roll thing he does. He's like, I developed that on that tour. It's like, now it's my staple.
Interesting.
So I played in wedding bands in Northern California. You got Napa Valley, Tahoe, and Silicon Valley in San Francisco. So like the wedding band scene there, you're literally playing million weddings. The band is making 15 grand. It's, I mean, they're probably finding that money under their couch cushions, man. Like, Dad, I want this band. Like,
That's
right.
crazy.
Yeah. So the wedding band gig there is ridiculous. So I did that too. So I was playing Michael Jackson and Maroon 5 and doing that stuff, and it was fun. I was like, how can I make Billie Jean sound like me?
Oh no! What did you do? What would you do to it?
I got so many dirty looks from my bass players. Oh man, stop dropping bombs, man. This is it's like, all right, but that got me over that that was the first real series of gigs where it got all the butterflies out. Like, what if I mess up kind of stuff.
Right.
No, and there's also a big gospel chops scene in Northern California, and I befriended a lot of those guys. And I actually was this is true, I was at a shed with Thomas Pridgen and Eric Moore. Yeah, and I sat in. I was just like, sure. And I played some stuff, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get off the drum set now. But a lot of the friends I made there really influenced me a lot, and we had so many sheds. I shedded every weekend with a lot of those drummers. I took a lot of online lessons. I have, and sorry, it's a long story. This all led to A Lot Like Birds getting our first record deal in 2011 and starting our first tour was 3 months. 3 months at the beginning of 2012. So
wow.
Yeah, we were sleeping on basement floors, making nothing. My father always said, because he's an artist too, he said, "You're not a real artist unless you've slept next to a few water heaters." I was like, I remember one night on my first DIY tour that was just a disaster at the time. I remember having my sleeping mat and my sleeping bag, and I remember looking up, and I was in someone's basement, and there was a water heater, and I was like, Dad! So I text messaged him. I was like, I'm sleeping next to a water heater. He's like, you made it, man. So, but anyway, things just sort of, from there, I just started doing session work. I've never been huge on social media. I hated Facebook at the time. And no offense to anything, but I'm kind of a private guy. So I wasn't, and I'm not the most computer savvy person. So it was remarkable that after not having a Facebook, I just started getting phone calls, texts, emails. Hey man, can you come play this gig? Can you come record for this pop record, this thing? And I just sort of wrote it. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can still do that without really having a whole lot of social media presence. And I remember a well-known bass player from Canada here named John Diamond, who's played with Katie Lang and played with a bunch of well-known artists. And he's a session guy as well. And he said, I've never even had business cards. Should I have a website? And we laugh, right? Because he was bass player of the year many times. However, I think that I didn't like Facebook really either, but it's necessary. And I think it has gotten to the point where we do need to have some social media.
Sure.
I didn't want to do it either, but having the show and
oh, dude, yeah, it's a necessary thing. It's because I don't judge, like, I've somehow managed to pave a way without completely. Although Instagram, my wife and one of my engineers jokingly started my Instagram while I was doing a video shoot.
That's great.
Because I was so against, like, I don't care, I don't want to be on that world.
Right.
And I was doing a video shoot. It was A Lot Like Birds playthroughs, and my wife was there, and she and incredible engineer Josh Benson and my videographer Damien were there, and they were all in the control room, and I was doing my thing, and they came in the talk back, and they said, "By the way, we just started you on Instagram with your email." And I was like, "No, don't. I don't want to get into that world." They're like, "Too bad, we already made your first post." And I was like,
"Good,
you jerks." And then I realized that if I didn't develop a following first, my first video release was going to see nobody. You have to build it up. And then when you get a following, then you release something decent. And then people are like, then you actually have people to see it. So I bought into it. And now, it's a blessing and a curse. I respect it, and there's no way to avoid it. Like, this is the natural progression of the human race right now. So I I'm playing ball, and I appreciate every single human that has interacted, cared, all that stuff, all of it. So
Yeah, there's room for everyone, and I think there's a fine balance be about having some musical ability and some musical experiences rather than virtual. People post
yeah,
stuff and um, but you need to, as you've already done, paid a lot of dues and played with a lot of people, played on records and toured and all that kind of stuff. So you need to have that, and it's awesome. You're like a great age because you're still in your 30s. You're a great age to have a nice marriage of real world playing experience and then the social media stuff. Man, this is
that's a good way
it's
to put
great.
it.
And your wife's very smart. From the sounds of it,
Oh,
really.
she
So
is. She
kudos to
is.
her.
No, my wife. Shout out to my wife. She is an incredible human being. I would. I owe my life to her. So that's
Nice to hear.
yeah.
That's nice to hear. Wonderful. Now, had you heard of Gretsch drums at this point?
I had. I saw the logo here and there, and I was like, "What is that?"
I know.
But what really, yeah, and now the logo is like my religion. But growing up, especially in a small town in Utah, I was limited with my, we had Mapex, a few Yamaha at Burt Murdoch Music, and a couple of other things, and so I didn't think drum brand. I never even thought about that.
Right.
I bought a used Mapex Mars Pro from my friend's brother when I was in my late teens, and that carried me all the way to Sacramento, which is kind of nuts.
Wow.
I mean, good middle of the road kit sort of for performing, and but he also sold it to me with like a solid rock and sock throne and an array of Zildjian cymbals because he just didn't care. So I didn't realize how epic a deal it was at the time, but I still have a few of those cymbals and stuff. So so when I moved to Sacramento, also I should say that I'm very grateful that my early drum teachers and my mentor, Jay Lawrence, taught me that even though drum tuning is a righteous pain when you're a kid, because you have no clue what you're doing or how to make it sound good, try it anyways. Don't just buy drum heads from the store. They are expensive, especially when you're young. And so don't just buy them, throw them on the drums, and just start playing. When you get new heads, sit with them, try to get a good sound out of them, figure out. And so I did finally figure out how to tune my own drums, which was like, that's like a win for a lot of drummers.
Big time.
So when I worked at Skips Music, they also run one of the biggest independent backline sort of sections, divisions in the entire country. So for the entire Northern California area, you have SIR, and then you have Skips Music.
Wow.
And Skip owns like 4 B3 Hammond organs, like 6 Leslie speakers. He has every drum company under the sun. So when I worked there, I got into this is going somewhere. He went into, he put me in the backline division. So at first I was like, backline? I don't even really know what that means. And they're like, well, you're going to be setting up and tuning drums for B.B. King, Garth Brooks. Like, you're going to be just sending out gear to these massive artists. And I was like, all right, that's not the worst gig. I like gear. Maybe I could learn something. Little did I know, that changed my life because I didn't have to send out drum sets tuned, but I was like, I might as well. I mean, their drum techs are going to be like, this guy sucks. I'm going to retune this. I've seen it. But every single new set of heads I put on a kit to send out, I was like, I'm going to make this sound just godly. It's my goal. So I tuned probably hundreds of drum kits over those years working there. And I also tried every brand. They had Yamaha, Mapex, Ludwig, Tama, Gretsch, DW. They had them all, right? As a good backline company should. And so I was paid to just explore all the drum companies.
Wow.
I tuned them up, put them on a carpet, played them, messed with them. It took me a while to feel good about tuning. I was like, man, I suck. I can't get these drums to sound good. Yeah. Got timbale 12 inches and timpani 18 inches. And I'm just like, but I finally sort of learned my process, hit my stride. And what I learned is that every drum company makes amazing drums. I don't mind admitting that. It's like they all make good stuff. If you have the money to buy the high-end kits, they all make good stuff. However, whenever I played a Gretsch kit, this is going to sound cheesy, but it just spoke to me. Whenever I played the Gretsches, I was like, this just feels so good. There's just some extra element here. And I mean, they were USA Customs and Brooklyn, so duh. But like the kick drums, the toms, the way, the 5 lugs, everything. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I couldn't describe this in a paragraph if you asked me to, but it just feels right. And so what eventually led me to the Gretsch situation is before our first tour in 2012, the local Gretsch rep, Michael Parkinson, said he knew I was interested, but I didn't have a lot of money. Weird. And so I got a text from him one day. He said, Joseph, we have a Gretsch New Classic Midnight Sparkle, full rig, sitting on the shelf at the Gretsch warehouse, and like they just told me to move it, just get it out. And I was like, so worst idea ever, but best idea ever. I got a cash advance. I just went down, got a cash advance, boom. So those retail, with the amount of drums I had, it was 10, 12, 14, 16, and a 22-inch kick drum. That's about a $3,000 setup, retail-wise, and I got it for $1,400. So, and it's a lacquer. So I took it home, and my brain exploded. Took it on tour, and shout out to Gretsch, by the way, because I remember we were in Kansas City in the wintertime, and it was a 98-degree venue, and I took him outside, and it was about -5 outside, and the lacquer cracked. That's not Gretsch's fault. That's just Mother Nature. She was just like, sorry. Gretsch was just like, yo, send us the kick drum, we'll just replace it. Send us the tom, we'll replace it. They did.
Wow.
They were like, dude, sorry. There's really no way to avoid that, but we'll take care of you. So I used that kit to record. That kit's been on more records for me than any other kit, which has since been sold only for a lot of reasons. It needed a good home. It was collecting dust. And I don't like drum sets. Just, I want them to be played.
Yes. To
a good friend of mine, Joe in Chicago, who deserves that kit. It had its day with me. A year later, Michael Parkinson said, hey, man, I have another new classic sitting at the warehouse. I said, why are you telling me this? I don't need another one. He said, yes, you do. I said, you're right, I do.
I like this guy.
He wasn't making commission off of me. It was like literally in the back door, like no one knows this kit exists except me and like the warehouse. So it was a vintage glass wrap. So like kind of that goldish.
Oh yes, I know it.
So yeah, the story with that kit is a guy had ordered the vintage glass, all the sizes. I think he was like a doctor or a lawyer and cared about drums, but never played them. So he ordered this when the New Classic first came out, and it just sat in his basement. And they changed the New Classic wrap. This is really nerdy Gretsch stuff, but they changed the New Classic wrap a few months into the vintage glass to a more gold. It was more affordable for them,
right?
So, so he came back to Gretsch. He said, "Hey, I want 2 more kick drum sizes in this finish." They said, "Well, we don't make that. It's gold now, more than like the sort of whitish." And he said, well, can I just sell you this kit back and then get all the sizes in gold? And they said, sure, or vice versa. Sorry. Now,
right.
Yeah. Anyways, so he had sold them this kit. It was 20-inch kick drum, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16. And I got it for $1,000. Hadn't been touched.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's stupid. So and later on, I even found another shell pack from that same finish with a 22 San Francisco, bought it like that. So now I have every size I need in that gold New Classic. And that's like my go-to kit now. That's like my, So at the end of 2014, I got the biggest tour offer I'd ever gotten, playing for a band called Chiodos. I'm not their drummer, but I was a hired gun. And I'm sure you're familiar with Mike Johnston.
Yeah, I might have heard of him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess outside drums, like cashier at the store, like, you know who Mike Johnston is? No. But in the drum world.
That's my Ferrari. Oh, yes.
Yes. So he's a good buddy of mine. We haven't talked in a while because of things, but like he lives in Sacramento, so we shedded and connected on a bunch of things and nerded hard together.
Nice.
And one day he was like, dude, have you ever tried to get a Gretsch endorsement? I was like, just don't think about endorsements. I already own 2 full rigs. He's like, dude, you gig and record so much. Do it. So he actually introduced me via email to the rep. So I owe him for that initial, because I don't represent myself well, man. I'm not a media guy. So I was like, I don't know. I don't really have much social media or so he sent them the and his name was Brent Barnett. He was a temporary rep because they were being absorbed by DW. So on this tour, I remember I got this call in New York, and it was so funny. I'm gonna name drop here. I don't care. When I first got the call, I was on a busy street of New York City on this tour, like on an off day, and he said, "Hey man, this is someone from such drums, and hey, what's up?" And I thought he said SJC drums. Who, to each their own. Everyone makes good stuff.
Yep.
But SJC had been emailing me saying, "Hey, we'd love to give you a deal, et cetera, and I just had ignored them. So I thought somehow they got my number, and I was just like, so my first instinct when he called me was like, "Oh, hey, how did you get my number? And what is?" And then he continued to say, "Hey, well, I wanted to talk to you about a deal, and I really appreciate." And then my brain was like, "Dude, this is Gretsch. This is Gretsch."
Yeah.
He said, "Man, you're one of the busiest artists I've seen in a long time. We'd love to work with you." And I said, "Cool." And I was sort of starstruck, which is hard for me. I was like, "Oh, Gretsch." And he said, "So let's get you set up with a kit." And I said, "Oh man, I even with the discount, which is very generous artist discount, which it is, by the way, Gretsch is so generous with their artists." I was like, even with the discount, I can't afford a kit right now. And he's like, "No, Joe, we just want to ship you a kit. We're floating you a drum set. Just tell me you." And I said, "Oh, well, some gigs I need a 22 and some gigs I need a 20. And I was so sort of flustered. I was like, I don't really, he's like, "Joseph, tell me exactly what you need to get your job done as a drummer."
Wow.
I said 20, 22, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. He said, "Done." And I was like, oh. Just floored.
That's insane.
And then he said, "We're going to get you a Renown because that's a kit we're really trying to push right now. It's a middle of the road kit, but still sounds fantastic."
They're
by
awesome.
the way. Yeah, there's a lot like Bird's drum videos. That's a raw Renown kit. Those sounds ridiculous.
Yes.
Especially not to be that guy, but for the price, like when people
It's true.
when people hit me up about drums that are not $5,000, I'm like, buy a Renown. And I've had hundreds of people do it, and they're all like, "This is my kit now.
I have 2 here in this room. I have 2 Renowns in this room.
They rule."
Yes.
So now my Renown, that one they sent me, the vintage pearl, is now still my like road dog. It's like the rig that I take to beat the crap out of. My guitarist stands on the kick drum because you got to do it. I know it took a while. It took a while for me to be like. I even had Andrew Shreve and I even had a conversation. I was like, "Andrew, do I let my guitarist stand on the kick drum?" He said, "Oh, bud." You know, Andrew? Can I do Andrew's voice? But
What's he weigh?
Yeah. He's a skinny dude. We decided that we decided that because of the personality of the bands I'm in and for the showmanship, we decided that all drums are fixable. That's what we decided. I know you're like, "Dude, don't tell me that."
Right.
Sacrilege.
That's incredible though. Like, as you know, I was just signed on April 1st on Jeff Porcaro's birthday, so I know what it's like to be excited. Whoa. And Andrew and I were on the phone, and I actually did have tears. Yeah, it was a goal for so long, and I know how you felt, but that's unbelievable. That no, what do you need? What a company, right? You know, like
I mean, because even like Vic Firth, Zildjian, I love them. 64 Audio, I love them. And I understand that even with artists, you still have to make a profit. Like people are like, oh, I just get stuff for free, right? It's like, dude, these companies only exist because people pay for their products. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
right.
It is business. But to know which artists to be like, hey, like, and it's so bare bones. Playing that kit, all these tours, I have endless young drummers say, hey, what kit is that? Sounds amazing. It's a Renown.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, I'll get a picture from them on Instagram, and they'll be like, dude, I bought one, and like, this is how it should work. And they're not spending a fortune either. They're happy with the kit. Gretsch makes money. You know, I don't consider myself a walking advertisement. I'm an advocate. You know, I'm an ambassador. I'm like this. Like, I believe in this. I'm not just raking in dollars. I care about this. It's an art. So yeah.
That's phenomenal. So, and when was that? How long ago did you sign?
So that was the very end of 2014. And
wow, okay.
And so when people come to me and ask me about endorsements and sponsorships, I say, you got to pay your dues first. It sucks to hear, but that probably wouldn't have gone that way if I didn't have countless photos and video footage of me on my new classics. Not in a superficial way, but it's like, hey, I care about these drums. I'm willing to put them out into the world through media and stuff. Like, you know, you kind of have to. And so when the time comes and they start to talk to you, you're like, oh, well, I got this video, this show, this music video. I got your logo here. And, you know, so it was a huge journey. But when they finally did, and I still, like, for instance, right, I don't, real quick, I don't own a USA Custom, which is a travesty. I had one ordered when the pandemic hit.
Right.
And then, in fact, the one that they made for me has now been sold to somebody else because I just can't afford it. It's all good.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, we'll be back to work, and it sounds like in the States, you'll be back to work a little bit sooner than we will here in Canada. But what was the USA kit? What was the finish? What were the sizes?
It was, I think it was the big Fleck Black Sparkle. I'm a Sparkle guy. I don't, you know,
that's funny.
I don't know. Maybe I need to drum for Beyonce or something. I don't know. But I think Sparkles, like when you see a glitter kit in the store, you're like, glitter kit. Once you see them on stage and the lights hit them, they're so classy. It's just classy. So it was a black sort of sparkle. I mean, it was every size. It was every single size. 20-inch kick, 22-inch kick, 10, 12, and a USA Custom 6.5 by 14 snare drum too. So it was like, and the snare drum was a silver sparkle. So
oh, cool.
Yeah, black sparkle with a silver sparkle snare. I thought that'd be kind of a cool contrast.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but
that's funny. I was just talking a couple of hours ago to friends of mine as well, because I'm thinking about ordering a USA Custom kit, and I want to go with, you know, a sparkle kit. I think I had 10 to narrow it down from. So we'll see. You know.
Yeah, there's a sorry to interrupt. If anyone's curious about the silver sparkle, I don't know if that's what it's called, but it is a silver sparkle. The Royal Coda music video for Numbing Agent has a USA Custom silver sparkle in it, and it's just a gorgeous kit. I rented it from the Los Angeles SIR for the music video shoot, and I didn't want to send it away. I was like, can I just put this on the airplane with me? Or anyway, so sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, it's great when you have backline like that. We played in the Bahamas in the summer of 2019 for 2 weeks, and I had a beautiful Ocean Sparkle new classic kit that they sent.
It's blue, right?
16. It was the blue
fade.
Oh, it was.
I wish I had that one.
I had never seen one. I had never seen one up here, and of course I asked for it as a backline, and they flew the. No, I think they actually had it in Nassau, Bahamas, but we were at the Atlantis Resort, so They managed to get a Gretsch kit in there, and I was blown away. And they sounded ridiculous. And you know what I love about Gretsch drums, besides just about everything, is the fact that they hold their tuning. I would go up and check before each show. I might turn one of the floor tom screws, the lug screws, a teeny bit, but hardly for the 2 weeks. Like they were just so great. And these drums in here, same deal, man. They stay in tune. The die-cast hoops help with that. And they're well made.
Yeah, when the vintage pearl Renown they shipped me was when they were doing die-cast on the Renowns, and I feel very lucky because that to me was the most beautiful marriage of these drums may not be like top of the line at the very top, but those plus the die-cast hoops, just some marriage of that was perfect. And the new classic die-cast hoops are just I wish I had that blue black sparkle, that ocean sparkle, that beautiful drums, just ridiculous. Yeah.
I remember Hannah Welton when she was Hannah Ford. She had that back maybe almost a decade ago when that finish came out, and I was like, oh, man, I want that. We have a couple messages here. Joseph said, that's my kit. Is that the Joseph that you sold the drum set to?
If that's Joe Coos, then yeah.
Yeah, Joe Coos right there. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Awesome. I had to ship him those drums from Las Vegas. That's a long story. They ended up there. It's a long story. And I had to shipping those drums was so stressful. That drum set is a relic. They don't make those anymore. Right. But we did it, and they showed up in good shape. And he's a very happy man. So that kit has been on a lot like Birds Records, Cianbar Records, Royal Coda Records. It's got some history. So, yeah.
That's amazing. We have a fan of yours here all the way from Brazil, Guto Milo. I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad. He said, hi from Brazil. Joseph is my idol. Loves your playing. That's phenomenal.
I've recorded a song for him. He has a band. I don't think it's been released yet. And I don't want to butcher any of his information, of course. But he's a beautiful singer and songwriter, absolutely incredible music. And they hired me for one song. I recorded remotely, and at some point that'll be released. At the time, the band was called Milo, I think. So, but the song, when I first listened to it without drums, brought me to tears. Wow. So I was honored to be on the song, and I even have video of it. I'm just waiting for them to sort of want to release it or whatever. So cool. Shout out to those guys. To be hired from someone from Brazil is just, I don't deserve it, but.
Oh, you absolutely do. Do you have a home setup that you can record?
I do. It's not great. Just the microphones aren't too amazing. It's a work in progress, but I have enough inputs, and it's a really good demo rig. So for the first time, I've been able to just like nail demo drums, like really be able to record demo drums and send them back and forth between artists before the session. And that's been huge. So if I put my mind to it, I could probably set up something where I could make really valid studio quality drums, but it might be a while. So we'll see.
Right. Do you run Pro Tools?
GarageBand.
Yep.
Yeah, I only started caring about DAWs like last year, and I'm such an old school. I just want to sit at a drum set, play. Computers freak me out. Software freaks me out. Yeah. But I started to realize that was going to eat me alive if I didn't start to care about where technology's headed. So I have, I'll probably graduate into Logic. That's probably what I'll eventually end up.
Yeah. So nice. I started off with Reaper. I'm using Reaper, and it's
heard that's really good. Yeah.
Nice and simple. A lot of folks really like it, and I started doing some demo stuff here, and mainly to kind of gauge my performances with play along things, and then have played on a couple of tracks here as well.
Oh yeah.
And it's really fun. I really love doing it. If the mindset of, okay, we're going to make a take all the way through. I'm not going to punch in anything. I don't even know how to do that. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like
you'll learn a lot about who you are as a drummer when you do that.
Yeah. I started back in the late 80s with a 4-tracker playing along with the Dave Weckl play alongs. And that, oh man.
Love those. Contemporary Drummer +1?
That was the one, man. Yeah, playing
Island Magic.
ball and Island Magic. And
Yeah, dude.
again and again, I'm throwing the sticks on and playing brush. Oh man! But there's no better way to learn than to record yourself and to video yourself and just what kind of stupid faces you might make and holding his breath and stuff. But it's wonderful, man. It's revealing.
Yeah, man. My drum faces are the amount of like live photos I have where I'm like, oh my god. But I'm impossible to offend, and I don't care. So like, my brain goes to like, oh, the world needs to see this for sure. Like this, like, I can look like the caveman troglodyte all day. I don't care. I do not care. So
that's funny. I just look like I'm in pain. You know?
Yeah, the stank face.
Yeah, it's a lot of that, and I try not to now with the Abbott tribute. There's an awful lot of video, a lot of pictures, so I try to not do that and be happy. And man, I tell you, I'm happy we get to play Gretsch drums. We get to play music in front of people that want to be there, and it will come back again. So excited for that.
Yes, it will.
Let's talk about the future for you. So what do you have? You were telling me that you have a couple of tours that are in the books for a little bit later this year and next year.
Yeah, everyone should be stoked to find out that just because I know everyone's waiting for it and everyone needs it. I have a tour booked in the fall. I can't say the bands, unfortunately. That's still going to be released when the time comes. Sure. But I do have a tour in the fall and a tour in early spring of 2022. So that should be something to look forward to. In addition to that, I think I'm sitting on 5 records right now that I've recorded that are unreleased. No, because Sonny Bronco actually released today. So awesome. Everyone go check out Sonny Bronco's record. It's all over our Instagrams, my Instagram and his Instagram. It's like an indie pop record that I got to really kind of wear a different hat for. And it was a lot of fun and very honest music. But yeah, Royal Coda has a single and a full length we're sitting on. Skylar Caparici. There's a lot of stuff coming out. So records are going to start dropping soon. I also have a drum educational manual. Really? that I've been slaving over for years. And it still probably won't be ready for years.
I'd like to see what that's all about. Tell us about it a little bit if you can.
Yeah. So it's the premise is actually pretty simple. I have always been a book person. Not a lot of drummers are. I shouldn't say that, but a lot of drummers I meet aren't. Man. When I say I work at a drum book, they're like, oh, I never really cared about books. Oh. Books just had a special place in my heart because of my drum teachers. And there's a handful of them that just and I used to be obsessed, like I have to finish the book from beginning to end. But then I learned that if you even get something out of 5 pages that inspires you to develop a new vocabulary idea and then you move on, you've already made it useful. And so I don't obsess over that stuff as much. I'm just like, well, if I get something from it. So books and now plus the internet and new media and video, like the combination of those things is invaluable. So I have like a stack of like 100 drum books. You name it, I probably have it, and I probably worked out of it at some point.
Me too. Yeah,
that's awesome. I kind of sense that from you. It's like all the Gary Chafee books, like New Breed, all that stuff. Like, in fact, if I were to endorse one single book in this entire session, it's David Garibaldi's Future Sounds.
Yeah, that's killer.
That is like the groove Bible. It changed the way I even look at the instrument. Kick, snare, hat stuff. Just it blew my mind. I spent an entire summer when I was a teenager that was one book where I actually got through the entire thing. Not well, but I managed to at least get every groove there. But in my adult life, there are a lot of things that I could hear drummers doing. I've been on tour, but I was still pushing to get better. The things I was hearing drummers do, and I was like, how do they practice that? I can kind of tell where they're going, but how do you like put that into a system to loop it to get better? Because that's a really abstract idea. And I don't know how to, and I realized that the only way I was going to achieve that was figuring it out on my own. So I just developed a bunch of matrices and axioms of certain concepts that you can pretty much plug into any subdivision or time signature. And I made my own personal practice routine, and my playing just went through the roof. My creativity and sort of vocabulary just skyrocketed after that. And so what I've decided to do is make a big series of chapters that are all very long, where you're learning every time signature, one time signature per chapter, but also every subdivision gets its own chapter. So there will be crossovers, and the idea is to take vocabulary you already have and plug it into that idea rather than feeling like you have to learn 100 new sticking patterns. If you already have all the 6-stroke roll inversions and the paradiddle inversions in your pocket, you can use those in every scenario. You can, my good friend Tim Buell, who does all the Vic Firth transcriptions and Zildjian live transcriptions, I picked his brain once and I said, dude, all these best drummers on earth are playing and you're transcribing, you're going through their dirty laundry. Give me some, he said, I'll tell you what, and this isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. He's like, most of these cats, they only have a handful of patterns they use all the time, but they have absolutely learned to own them in every time signature, every subdivision, and across the spectrum of all the voices. And that's another thing that kind of inspired me to be like, you know what? I need to use what I already have in a new setting, like putting this in 9 or in a septuplet or whatever, instead of, so that's kind of and there's a bunch of independence exercises and stuff that have really helped me over the years. So my idea is to have QR codes on each page and then have it reference a private YouTube video with a video reference of that example. But that's like 10 years of work, so we'll see.
You have a very talented wife, though, who's in IT, who could possibly, when she's not doing the other 50 things she has to, please don't. Yeah, I'm kidding. That's amazing,
no, she is that person. I don't know how she does it. So yeah.
No, yeah, they can multitask much more than we can. My wife's incredible too. So really. Yeah,
go ahead. Well, my wife and I joke about how she multitasks like a beast, and even though I have 4-way independence down, I can't multitask. One thing. No, I know. One thing, 4 limbs is what I say. It's one thing, but 4 limbs. So yeah. Anyway,
that's really neat. I would be seriously. I love new drum instruction, new approaches. We have an awesome drummer and educator friend of mine here named Marco Spadafora enjoying the interview, and he's got a terrific YouTube channel out called A Whole Lot of Drumming, and he is a phenomenal Toronto-based drummer educator. I'm going to
write that down.
For a long time. Whole Lot of Drumming, man. Marco Spadafora is his name, and he's he's just a world-class drummer. Yeah, and I got to tell you though, and I always rave about his traditional grip left hand. It is unbelievable. I sent him a question the other day. I'm like, okay, in your left hand, is your fulcrum right down here, or is it? And he sends me picture back saying, "This is what I do." I'm telling you, if you saw his, and you'll see it on his videos.
Cool.
But a lot of educational videos, and let me tell you, he's got so much in the tank. And anyway, enough about that. But that's really cool. Do you have a time frame that you're going to be releasing any of this material?
Well, the educational material, what I'm going to do is I'm actually, this is maybe not even the smartest idea, but I'm completely open to just sharing it with all my drum friends and getting feedback. I'm not worried about plagiarism or anything. Plus it's in the early stages. It's all like kind of scattered across software and so I'll even send you some and you can just be like, dude, this is worthless, or hey,
I can't do any of it.
Well, I'm kidding. But I don't have a plan for the release of the educational material because it's all just, I want it to be done right. It's kind of like, it's really worming its way into my brain as a player, and I just want it to be presented properly. I don't want to like jump the gun because I'm excited, which is very me. So, but as far as the, I'm also, this is something I've recently decided. I'm thinking of doing a Skillshare and an Udemy course. There's no shortage of drum educational material out there. If you
Right.
search paradiddle groove into YouTube, you're going to get 2 million hits. But it's amazing to me that there still is stuff to be learned that maybe not be floating around the spectrum as much. And so I'm just going to do some Skillshare Udemy courses on my take. Like if you're going to start from bare bones and try to get better at this instrument, this is my version of it. And once it's out in the universe, I can sleep at night. So
That's cool.
not much of a time frame, but I just, also the amount of work that goes into this versus the financial, like the monetary return is absurd.
Yeah.
But the drumming community has given to me so much over the decades that I have no problem giving back. I've had so many people inspire me, show me things when they didn't have to, take me under their wing, all that stuff. Hangs with people where it should have been a lesson,
I know.
but they're like, oh, let's just hang.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. Marco just commented here. Thanks, Neil. I would love Joseph's educational material and feature it on a future drum book studies video. You guys should maybe connect.
Yeah, I'll
and
connect
have
with them.
and have a chat. He's got a really great analytical brain, as well as a terrific creative side, and he's a wonderful educator. I learned an awful lot about how to actually put a drum course together and to keep students. I learned a ton from him when we both taught at a place called Drummer's Choice
Nice.
in Brampton. Wonderful shop that isn't in the same capacity any longer, but amazing. Yeah, you guys should definitely connect here.
I will.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love the drum lesson geeky material.
Yeah, and further in that department, I never went to music school. People ask me that all the time. And music school has its place for the right person, right? The right person who knows how to network, be in a classroom environment. I actually auditioned to get a scholarship for Berklee College of Music in my early 20s, and they liked my playing, but it just didn't work. They said, hey, no scholarship, but you can still come. I was like, well, I don't have $100,000, so no.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. So
yeah. It's super. And how are you going to pay for that? Tommy Igo is very outspoken about that. He's like, they're going to tell you, of course, because they're going to want the enrollment. And I didn't go to music college either. I studied at Ontario College of Percussion, private lesson place, did some piano as well, and played a ton. And like you, I've been doing a bunch of different lessons. I had a great hang with Peter Rutzloff. Last Friday.
That's cool.
From the Collective. Yeah.
Nice. Recently. Yeah, that's cool.
A week ago.
Oh, the Collective. I used to dream about the Collective.
Oh, me and you both. I look over the brochure and like, this is going to be so glamorous. I'm going to stay at the Y in New York City.
Yeah.
So I didn't. And I had a great lesson with Joe LaBarbera.
Oh, nice.
Back in December. Oh man, it was lovely. Drumming community is incredible for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great.
I remember when I worked at Skip's Music, the drum shop. The guitar department, everybody was shredding, playing, Stairway to Heaven with various tones in their own world. You walk up to the drum shop, there'd be like 10 people, men and women, standing around a big screen TV watching Benny Grebb's Language of Drumming, just being, this is so sick. It's such an addicting instrument to share ideas about, because because when you learn something new, you're like, I gotta show somebody this. This is genius. And so it's like, I even forget to monetize it. I teach hour-long lessons, and I have students that'll be like, hey, it's been an hour and a half. Are you going to charge me for the last 30 minutes? And I'm like, oh no, I'm having a blast. It's all good. I'm just rambling about cool ideas. And in terms of lessons, I still take them myself. This is an important thing for people to learn, because when I'm on tour, they say, what's your biggest recommendation? I say, find a teacher. I don't care if it's a local old jazz player at a college or something, or it's someone crazy on the scene, right? I don't care who it is. Find somebody with a new perspective. Just sit with them for like a month. You're going to get something new out of it, and it's going to put you in a good direction. What doesn't put you in a good direction is being stagnant, just sort of having the paralysis of choice. Like whenever I get new students, I say, you probably have a hard drive with 50 gigs of drum material on it. And they're like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, when was the last time you worked on it? And they're like, never. I'm like, it's like a diet or an exercise plan. They're all good. Pick one just buy into it for 6 months, see what happens. You're probably never going to have, you're always going to find something useful. And so like my teachers right now, I've studied with Juan Carlito Mendoza, ridiculous drummer.
Who's that? I know that name, but I'm not sure from where.
He's an online educator, Juan Carlito Mendoza, and he released a book called, oh, I'm going to butcher it now, I suck. It's a rudiment book where he basically goes through a bunch of rudiments and shows you like a million ways to play them in a groove and drum fill setting. Juan Carlito Mendoza from New Jersey, and then Justin Scott, who's an Instagram kind of drummer, J Scott Drummer, I think he calls himself. He's a huge inspiration for me, and many others. But always take lessons from somebody. Just try it. So
yeah. That's crazy, and that a lot of kids or a lot of even adults aren't going to necessarily think that it's important to constantly evolve, right? It's like, oh, you're here, you're good, you can relax, and man, you've got to learn. Like Neil Peart constantly learned through his entire life.
Oh yeah,
setting, So Neil from Rush. So yeah,
yeah. My favorite Neil Peart situation, which most drummers here will hopefully be familiar with, was when he decided to do the Buddy Rich gig. Couldn't really swing. Nothing wrong with that because you're in Rush, dude. Like, you do whatever you want. He still got up on stage and was like, I'll give this a shot. Who cares? He sounded great. And everyone kind of in the room was like, okay, this guy's not a jazz drummer, but that's okay. He got up and did it. Still learning. Always absorbing and trying new things. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and he didn't have to do anything. He could have just gone and played Rush shows, but he was of the, I miss Neil tremendously. He's the reason that I picked up the sticks when I did, and
big inspiration.
Very dear to my heart for sure. I was good friends with his first drum teacher.
Oh, wow.
With Don George, and Don George's material, his drum books are incredible. And I hear echoes of Neil's playing in those books. It's phenomenal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's really neat. I'll definitely share some of I'll play some things because I'm not going to send you what I physically have, but I'll just play some ideas and you'll go, oh, neat stuff that I'm sure you can kind of do, but it's a really neat approach. And Don was a lovely, lovely man. But
yeah, I hope to stay in touch with you in general after this. You're a great guy. Yeah. This is a lot of fun.
This is really fun for me. Now, let me just see. I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions. Yeah. What one or two valuable things have you learned from your journey, and what advice would you offer a young up-and-coming drummer if they said, "Man, I want to do what you do"?
Yeah. Well, here's a couple things. Some of these are drum-centric, and some of them aren't, because the rest of it affects the rest of it. So I didn't learn until a little further into my adult life that it's okay to take a break from drums. I touched on this earlier, but on a more detailed level, when you're a drummer, or when you're a musician in general, you have to have something to create about. You don't want to just write songs about the drums. And you got the Virgil Donati types who are like practicing 9 hours a day, the savants and to each their own. One of my favorite drummers. But when I first got married and had children, I was nervous that somehow that would impact my touring life and I wouldn't be able to practice as much. But man, and they supported me. So like I actually got all the practice in and still tour because they're amazing and they support me in that. And they understand that it speaks to me. But now I've learned the beauty of leaving that stuff at the door and going outdoors and doing all that other stuff. And then I actually have memories and emotions and things to create about. Wow. So I wish I had learned that earlier on, I guess, because I kind of broke myself mentally to try to be the best drummer on earth early on. It's okay to live outside of your instrument and it'll actually help your instrument is one thing. Second, for aspiring drummers, I used to really struggle with the fact that I was a drummer and that I couldn't create melodies. So, I didn't really have a sad or a happy drum part, at least as far as I felt. I was always subject to working with other musicians who were coming up with these emotions and these sort of, where there's a triumphant song or this song, and melodies and harmony had a lot to do with that. And so I had to learn that I can still express myself through the means of rhythmic tension, dynamics, whether or not you're playing something really complex or something really simple. You have just as much to do with the emotions and the value of that song as every other element. I used to struggle with that. And so just remember that. You sort of cascade over all the parts of drumming and you assimilate all your vocabulary. You can eventually add just as much as the chorus, progression. And that's kind of what jazz soloing is, right? With every instrument, you're building and releasing tension. You're kind of taking the listener on a journey, and then all of a sudden, bam, you find the one again. It's like, oh, there's this sort of cathartic moments. You can do that, and you are responsible for it. It's awesome. And then, as far as just the journey, it's a combination of opportunity versus hard work. Something does, my father calls it the sky hook, the thing that kind of just shows up out of nowhere once in your life and just goes, well, you might be just working some coffee job or, at a fast food restaurant, but you're practicing every day. And all of a sudden some band comes along. It's like, we choose you. And then poof, you're gone. All that skill, all that practice, all those thousands of hours you've been grinding become worth it because you were ready when it happened. If you're not ready, in fact, I think if you put yourself out there enough and you just care enough and you network enough, the opportunity will show up. But you have to be ready. Just have to sort of prepare whether you know it or not. And so that's because a lot of people say, how did you get lucky? And I'm like, well, luck. I mean
right.
The sort of monetary return versus how much you put into being a musician. You have to care about the instrument. You really have to be obsessed. So, and then on a very basic spectrum, practice your butt off. Learn to really love practice. I throw my drumsticks against the wall sometimes. I'm like, I can't do this. But there's no shortcuts. Take it slow. All of your idols, you'll get there. You may not sound exactly like them, but you are fully capable of getting on that level. Yes, they're human. You see a 5-minute drum solo on YouTube. What you're not seeing is the 10,000 hours they put in. And I don't know. I don't really have an organized list, but there's some.
This is phenomenal. You're very wise. I mean, you're in your 30s. I'm telling you, today I just wrote down some characteristics about our conversation here. You're very honest. You're very wise, introspective, and intelligent, and practical.
Jeez, thanks, man.
Advice, really, but not not romanticizing that. I played for 2 weeks and I'm on Warped Tour and now I'm on the cover of Modern Drummer. It's not like that at all, right? It's hard work and you definitely need to put in the time, but you gotta love it. And I love it. I know you love it. All of the Gretsch artists that I've spoken to love the process. Remember Larry London saying, like, you busted your butt all these years, and he says, but you love it, and you do. I was out here this morning just after 8, which was a little bit late for me, just to go through stick control. I'm almost all the way through stick control, and I'd never gone through anything past 1 to 72, and maybe some of the flam pages. But
that book is nuts.
It's great. Nuts. Really, if you just had one book, you could use stick control and substitute limbs for any of your right or your left hand, and you could do an awful lot. It is great. Valero went through that with his feet.
That guy's ridiculous.
Love Dom. Yes.
Love that dude. Love him so both as a person and a drummer. My mentor. So I don't know if you know who. So I probably got to wrap up, but oh geez, I can't believe I just forgot his name. My mentor studied with the alphabet of drumming. I can't believe I forgot his name. Now I'm embarrassed. One of the best jazz drum teachers that's ever lived. He did the rudimental ritual.
Oh, okay. Alan Dawson?
Alan Dawson. Jeez, I can't.
All good.
36, man. Brain's falling apart. Just kidding. But Alan Dawson. So my teacher studied with him for like 6 years. And they always had this sort of joking thing between them that was 1,000 ways to apply stick control. It didn't mean there were actually 1,000 ways. What it means is if you are creative enough, there are endless ways to use those patterns between voices and limbs and subdivisions. And so that taught me a lot. And so I'm right there with you.
I love that. I'm going through that book again here, the John Riley book, Alan Dawson's book. We have a comment here from my good friend Lucas Von Gretsch, Lucas O'Connor here. Hey, Joseph,
Hi, Lucas.
Great to meet you here. If I were to check out an album you have played on, which album would it be?
You know, I think one of the best examples of my playing, if you really want to hear the chaos in my brain, it's the first Sianvar EP, which is an older. That came out early 2014. It's an EP. It's only 5 songs, but we wrote a song a day and then tracked the entire thing in one weekend. So it's about as honest as it gets. We just sort of went for it, and the band became wildly successful. It was a side project, but that EP was tracked by Josh Benton at Puss Cavern in Sacramento. Those drum tones are a real honest new classic drum sound.
Wow.
And that's just because I have like my drum ideas, sort of like a drum skeleton before I record, but then when I'm actually in the studio, drum fills and everything are improvised. So that's a good record to be like, this was exactly what this dude's brain was at the time. It's with very little editing. So the first Sianvar EP.
How do you spell that so everybody knows how to?
S-I-A, S-I-A-N as in Nancy, V-A-R, Sianvar. It's a made up word. My guitarist came up with it. I don't know. So,
That's
but
awesome.
That one, and then maybe Compassion by Royal Coda, because that has the single Numbing Agent on it, which is my favorite sort of slightly proggy but rock composition I think I've ever come up with those guys. And so Numbing Agent by Royal Coda is a good song to check out. So
phenomenal. Then Lucas, Sianvar. Lucas is Mr. Gretsch's nephew. And
oh, wow.
A good friend of mine. Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, and Lucas has a wonderful show called Gretsch Heritage, where every month he goes through a different era of the Gretsch family business journey. And
I need to hop on this. I need to look that up.
I believe it is on next Wednesday, the 14th of April, Lucas, if you can clarify that. Yeah, it's a phenomenal show. I love it. I love geeking out all over the different eras of Gretsch drums and history, and got to connect with Mr. Gretsch himself through Lucas, and oh man, it's been
thanks to Lucas for even being here. That's cool.
Yeah, phenomenal guy. Yeah, we've chatted. Yeah, he's good friend, and can't wait to meet all of you folks in person if a NAMM ever happens, and when live things get, man, we're going to be going to so many shows and seeing so many drummer friends. It's going to be, we're going again. See you later.
Yeah. Dude, I've never been to NAMM.
Me neither.
Yeah, I want to go. I want to do it just for the experience. I want to do it.
Yeah, We'll get NAMM Thrax together. That's what they call it there, NAMM Thrax. So, but that is phenomenal. Thank you, Joseph, so much for your time, your wisdom, your friendship, and man, sharing your love of Gretsch drums and just talking about your experiences, man.
Of course.
It's been really fun. So,
I have to. I appreciate you. This has been awesome. I could literally talk about this kind of stuff for hours. So I need people to like cut me off because I just get lost in that world.
This is great.
You're a great dude, and I can feel your love of this stuff, all of it that we're talking about. It's emanating. I have to shout out my son Blake, who's 11.
Hey, Blake.
Who is in the other room, and he's been very quiet during this whole thing. He knows how important this is, and he's like, "Are you going to shout me out?" I'm like, "Dude, of course I am."
He said, "Love you, Dad." He wrote back here, "Love you, Dad."
Did he just Did he just write there?
Well, a little bit ago.
Heck yeah! No, that's awesome.
That's a great age. 11's amazing. I loved it when my son was that age. It was great, and they're turning 21 tomorrow, so which is pretty crazy how fast. Well, I'm old. It's crazy how fast stuff goes. So.
Yeah, well, I'm proud of him because he has taken on the mantle of learning German and history on his own because of the pandemic stuff. He hasn't been in school as much. He just looks up he just comes in and drops World War II and ancient Roman facts on me, and I'm like, and he retains them. He's just a knowledge bomb. So I'm like,
that's awesome.
Anyway,
that sounds like my son Liam, you would ask him a science question when he'd be about 6, and he would answer it. I'm like, how do you know? He goes, I read it. He read the Harry Potter books when he was really young and loved it. Oh yeah, I'm reading Modern Drummer. He's reading Harry Potter. Far times.
I know.
Far smarter than his old man, and he's a talented musician too. Just do your kids play instruments at all?
They don't. I saw if they wanted to dabble in it, and it didn't click. And I was like, that is fine. There's a little teeny little part of back of my head was like, well, maybe they could be. But once I found out that it just wasn't part of their DNA, I was like, as long as you do something that matters to you, that's all I care about. Just care about stuff.
Let them be them, and it's beautiful, man. No matter what, as long as it's constructive and phenomenal, man. Well, you're an awesome guy, man. I'm telling you.
So are you, man.
I really enjoyed our time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, next week we have episode 48 of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break, closing in on our special 50th episode. And wait until you see who that guest is going to be.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for your time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Everyone, take care, be safe, and we'll see you next week.
I'll be in touch with you too. Take care, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.